Hello everyone, welcome to Lone Oak Elementary. What I'm doing today is I'd like to do a demo of how to sculpt a bird. If you have been following along the John James Audubon study and been drawing with the Art Hub for Kids and drawing and creating drawings of birds to create a book, I thought the great way to end the unit would be to sculpt, and I'm actually using clay. If you're at home and you don't have clay my kind of clay needs to go into a kiln and gets fired at cone 05. If you don't have a kiln, or if you don't have clay that needs a kiln, you can use air dry clay, but I'm also going to include a recipe to make your own Play-Doh. So you can use Play-Doh, you can use any kind of material you can, but I thought let me go ahead and show and explain some of the techniques using clay. So I just have a lump, but let's go over our tools first. I have a bowl of water, just a little bit. I have a sheet of paper. I have a tool. I'm going to use the flat paddle point, and it also has a curved point, which would be good for making curves. This is good for cutting straight lines, but we can also use them to create textures. We have what I call the butter knife, which that's what it reminds me of. It cuts straight lines, but again we can use it to make different kind of textures, and I'm going to show you how to make some textures using this end. The stylus, or just a small pointed stick, you can use the small point to create designs, lines, and patterns, but today I'm going to be using the round blunt end to make a special effect. This tool is extremely important. This is called the scoring tool. The scoring tool has little tiny ridges at the end. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dip it in the water, then I will wet and scratch one piece of the clay, dip and scratch the other piece of the clay, and that will fuse and bond them together. So if you're using air dry clay, this would be a really good technique to use as well. If you're using Play-Doh or modeling clay that is really moist and will stick without using the extra piece of fusing them together, you may not need that. But if for me, since I'm using clay that will be when it dries, it'll shrink a little and pull apart, so therefore I really need to make sure it's fused together, so I'm going to use the scoring technique. So here I go. I start off with a lump, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sort of break it or twist it in half. So it doesn't matter what size I have. I can make a really small bird, or I can make if I had a real large lump of clay, I can make a very large bird. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set all the tools off to the side and just work with this piece first. So what I did was I took a piece, broke it in half. I'm going to roll it in my hands round, round, round to make a sphere. Now, if the piece of clay is too large, you can always roll it on your mat. And what I'm using to work my work surface is a piece of linoleum mat, which is from a floor. So if I bend it back, you might see that it's actually from flooring, but I like the back because the clay does not stick to it like it does to the table. Okay, so now I have something that looks very ball-like, or a sphere. It didn't have to be perfect because this is actually going to be my bird. So I'm going to do a thumbs up, and I'm going to put my thumb into the clay and push. And as you can sort of see, it's sort of stuck in my thumb. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to push, I'm going to pinch, and I'm going to twist. Pinch, twist, pinch, twist. And I keep doing that. And what it does is it opens the clay, and it makes what we call a pinch pot. If I'm doing this in class, what I'll do is I'll come around and check to make sure the walls are not too thick. Make sure that the bottom and the top is not really thick. And usually I just check it really, really quick. Depending on what I'm making, if I want to make a clay creature, I can sort of set it on the side, push that flat, and this piece will be the mouth, and this is going to be the bottom. If I'm making a bird, however, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it upside down. And this is a good time to put my pinch pot, flip it upside down, and I'm going to lay it on my piece of paper and set that off to the side. Next, let's think about parts of the bird. I always like to start with the eyes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pinch a smaller piece off. There's one, two, one for each eye. And roll it to create a sphere, one eye. And two. Now to get the eyes to attach, I'm going to need the scoring tool. So I'm going to dip, scratch the eye, dip, scratch where I want the eye to go, and then I have to press. I always like to press and give it a little twist. A lot of students will do the techniques, but they really forget to press, which pushes and joins that together. Eye number two, dip, scratch, dip, scratch, and then press. So that is the beginning of my bird. There's the eyes. Beak. Oh, I'm going to take a pinch. I don't want to really make a ginormous beak. And if it's too small, I can always add more together. If I go around, 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 I make a sphere. But if I go back and forth like this, it makes it into a cylinder. So if I want to make it into sort of a cone shape, I'm sort of turning and twisting this in. It gives it more of a cone or a teardrop shape or form. And so now I'm going to dip, score, dip. I'm going to score right where that should go, and then I press it on. Now when I press, I sort of pinch in with my fingers like this, and it sort of gives the bird a sort of flap. Now to make some special effects, I'm going to use the round point of this, of the stylus. I'm going to push and twist to make a pupil. Push and twist to make a pupil. And I can use this tool to make my mouth. And I could use the tiny point if I want to give my bird some nostrils. Okay. Next would be the wings. So I'm going to scoop my bird off to the side. To make the wings, I'm going to take a fairly good sized pinch, roll it into a sphere. It doesn't have to be perfect, because the next thing I'm going to do is put it on my mat and take my hand, which is a press, and sort of flatten it. And I want to flatten it to about the size or the thickness of an Oreo cookie. And if I had a friend over, I'd take my butter knife, and if I only had one cookie, I would slice it in half. And now I have, looks like 2 capital D's, or wings. So when I go to put the wings on, I want to do the flat side up and the curved side down. And the wings will go here on the sides. And if I tipped it up, you can sort of see. But it will not stay, because I need to do the scoring trick. Dip, scratch, dip, scratch where I think the wings should go, and then press. I pressed and give it a little twist at the same time. Now the wings can bend out or they can bend back. I think I'm going to let mine bend back. So the other side, dip, scratch, dip, scratch, and press. So my bird's starting to come to shape. It sort of looks like it's sitting on a nest. I have wings, I've got the eyes, I've got the beak. As now it's time for one of the parts that I like the most is creating feathers. So if I want to create a feather, I want to take a pinch of clay, roll it into a sphere, and then I'm going to stop. Then I go back and forth to make a cylinder. If I keep going and I bend it, well, it can't be a cylinder anymore, but if it's a rope-like piece of clay, then we usually call that a coil. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take part of my coil and I'm going to pinch off a piece. And since I still have the coil in my hand, I'm going to go ahead and pinch off 3. Those are going to be my feathers. So what I do is one at a time. I use my hand as a press and I sort of just flatten it. And then I use my, let's see, I like this tool. What I'm going to do is just go down, make a line, and then do diagonal lines going up, and it creates a feather. And if I give it a gentle pinch at the bottom, you can sort of see my nice little feather. So again, I'm going to pull down. And what I could do is sort of pinch all 3 of these together. Spread them out a little bit. Use my scoring tool, dip, and this is where I join them all together, dip. I'm going to put it right here. I get a little bit of the back of the eyes and the top of the head, and then I press. And there's my bird. Sort of see. Okay. I could do the same technique for a tail. I use probably a little bit more. Go back and forth, make a coil, pinch off the coil. I flatten. I use my tool to make a line down the middle, diagonals. Sort of press those together, but they won't stay until I score it. I dip. And this sort of really pushes the clay together. I'm going to dip, scratch where the tail goes, and then I'm going to sort of press them on. Double check, smooth it out. To make lines or feathers for the wings, I'm going to take the end of this tool and I'm just going to gently sort of press, and I twist up and it overlaps. It makes neat little texture marks into the clay that sort of looks like feathers. I got to do the opposite direction. And again, any kind of tools, you could use a fork to use it as a scoring tool. You might use toothpicks. You might use a stick that you might get out of the yard. You might use a pencil that also has a little point. There's all kinds of things you could do to create textures into clay. And I can sort of just spread these feathers out, maybe do a whole body. Or I can make a whole bunch of feathers. I can make eyelashes, I can do, maybe we'll make it a bow tie. So I'm going to make a little sphere. Just sort of pinching. The thing about the scoring tool is you don't want to put your hands in the water, even though they get really dried out with the clay. If you do that, then you can't control the clay. So what I did is I made a cylinder and turned around, pinched to make a V. So there you go. I got a little bird with a bow tie. The next step is, once I finish, is I will leave this on the shelf to dry anywhere probably about 4 to 5 days, depending on the weather outside. If it's really humid, I might have to do 5. Then it will go into my electric kiln, which will take all day to heat up and all day to cool down, and then it will be ready to paint. I can paint it with watercolors. I could use tempera paint, I could use acrylic paint, or I could use ceramic glaze and do one more firing, and it'll be nice and shiny. It'll have a nice glossy coating. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed learning the steps and using some of our clay tools and using some of our clay terminology and learning how to sculpt a bird. Hope you enjoy. Thank you.